Hello and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing. I'm Jonny McFarlane. I'm joined by Derek Clark, who's out there in Portugal. Derek, hope you're well. How was your evening last night? Did you get away from the game okay? Was all well?
Yeah, although I'm delighted I don't have to attend at the Braga Stadium every week, because that is what a nightmare that is. A, to get to, B, to find. I mean, that you should have seen us trying to find the press conference room last night. It was like the Krypton factor. It was you had to go down below the pitch and get a number of different lifts, and we're all running about like mad trying to get in there, and then trying to find a way out was a challenge as well. And it's all uphill. It's all downhill when you get to the ground, which is all okay. But you do realise when you head back from the game, it's going to be a bit of a trek heading back into the town centre. So yeah, please not to be going there anytime soon. But yeah, I think it was a frustrating evening all in all on the pitch for Rangers. The atmosphere in the town centre all day during the day was brilliant. I posted a few videos up, and the Rangers fans were in full voice, and likewise during the game as well. And after the game, they were full of singing as well. Fair credit to them. But on the park, it was another frustrating evening, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like an ideal stadium for a man in my condition. I might just stick to having you or Joshua go there in future for games. I don't know how many more we've got to look forward to in Braga, but still, I might just avoid that based on that description. Let's get stuck into the game, Derek. Let's start with the lineup, because I posted a tweet last night, and I didn't expect it to sort of go viral the way it kind of did. It was based on a quote that Gio gave to Premier Sports after the game, where he was asked about Aaron Ramsey not starting, and Emma Dodge, the interviewer, said, was Aaron Ramsey fit? Because it was interesting he wasn't used in terms of not coming off the bench and certainly not starting. And Gio replied, he was fit, but we have a big squad. And a lot of people, I think, thought, what is going on with Aaron Ramsey? What is the situation here? You've got a guy who's on mega bucks, who's had an incredible career, who's only 31, who is been left out of this game despite the fact that he's fit. Now, my reaction to that was probably that Gio was trying to kind of spin it a little bit, didn't want to say that perhaps Ramsey, given his condition, his recent situation, he didn't want to play him 2 games in 1 week, especially after the exertions of the Celtic game. I might be completely wrong about that, but just it seems to me quite strange that if Aaron Ramsey's fit, he wouldn't start in a game like this. What was your reaction to that, Derek?
Yeah, I sort of tend to agree, Johnny. Before I get to that, I like this comment from Jamie Brown. I met him in the square yesterday. He's heading back via Vienna to Liverpool. So cracking stories the supporters making their way over. He's part of the World Rangers supporters club. I'd recommend, if anyone's down there, it's a fantastic little venue. Go and check them out. But yeah, it was a puzzling one, Johnny. I think when the team lineups came out, in my predicted lineups, I mentioned if Aaron Ramsey isn't 100% fit, then I wouldn't be surprised to see Scott Arfield start. So we did see that, and Ramsey start on the bench, which led me to believe that he can't play 2 games in quick succession. The Old Firm game might have taken a bit out of him. But then to hear, I seen your tweet, and to hear those comments afterwards sort of leaves you scratching your head, because if he's fit and available, he's been brought in from Juventus, remember, to play in high-profile games like this. And he's not playing. Giovanni van Bronckhorst obviously feels that he's got better options for this game. Maybe he felt he was perhaps too attacking, but Rangers, for me, offered very, very little going forward. He would have been the perfect player to even bring on when he made that triple substitution midway through the second half. But to not even see him feature at any point was a bit baffling. You've got to imagine he plays and starts next Thursday, because he's a game changer. He can change. He can turn the tie on its head. Rangers, of course, not out of it by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, it was a puzzling one, especially with these comments afterwards. Not only that, we touched on it as well. No Amad Diallo, and he's not even entered into the conversation. It's clear that he's not fancied, and Rangers down that right-hand side perhaps needed a bit of invention. I know James Tavernier was very frustrated in the second half. He felt there was a lack of movement over on that side. I think he would perhaps offer something, but I mean, Giovanni Van Bronckers sees these players in training. You've got to trust that he knows better than any of us what his best team is. But for supporters, it raises a few questions as to why he's been brought in, and if he is fit, why he's not playing.
I just wouldn't trust Diallo in that kind of game to track his man. There was a lot of defensive work having to be done. And based on what I saw of Diallo, when he has come in, I just don't think he's the guy to be entrusting with any kind of discipline. He's a very attacking player, and perhaps we'll see him in Scottish Premiership games going forward. But I don't know, Derek.
I'm not sure. We've not seen him since Dundee United, really.
Yeah. And he actually created a few things in that game when he came on.
Yeah, I think. Listen, if he squares that ball to Cala for an open goal at Tannadice, I think his career at Rangers might be entirely different. But I don't know where he comes in at any point from here on in. But yeah, the Ramsey one is interesting. Will he play Sunday? You'd imagine so. But you just don't know at this point in time. You just don't know what the Rangers team's going to be.
The thing is, as well, it can be performance related because, as Greg Wilson says here, Ramsey has actually scored recently. One of the few players who's actually made a kind of decisive impact, and against Celtic too. So, he's not like he's not performed in the big games. Yes, he only lasted, I think, 60 minutes before he was taken off against Celtic. But at the same time, I don't think Ramsey's let anyone down when he's come on. So it is a strange one. Like you say, you've got to ask now, like, what is he going to be thrown in against St Mirren? And then, or is he going to be left out and kept for the next week? Then he's not played in, 10 days or something like that. Or if he plays against St Mirren, will he play in midweek? It's a kind of strange one, isn't it? The way this has worked out. And you have to say, it's no surprise that people are starting to pick apart the January window moves.
Yeah.
We have to be honest, Derek. I keep saying this, it's true. None of us had any of these negative things to say about the January transfer window when it closed. I think if somebody had a go at it, they would have been quickly shouted down because everyone was really up to very, very positive about the signing of Aaron Ramsey, the signing of Diallo, who's obviously a £37 million player. But I mean, there's no getting away from it. At this moment in time, it certainly looks like neither has worked. You add James Sands into the mix, who's had little impact, really.
Yeah.
And you start to ask questions about what was done in that window, especially when you compare it across the city. They've gone out and signed 5 players, and of the 5 players, 4 have made a decisive impact on the title race. I mean, would Celtic be ahead in the title race if they hadn't signed Hatate, O'Reilly?
Remember just before January when the winter break get brought forward, Rangers were full of confidence heading into that game, and you would have backed Rangers to go to Parkhead and win. Celtic have, of course, strengthened since then. There's no doubt about it, and they've brought in players that have helped their first team, improved their first team, and that's why they're sitting 6 points ahead in the Premiership. So Rangers, it's a fair questions to be asked at the January transfer window. We haven't seen any of the signings really make an impact. I know Ramsey scored in the Old Firm game, but of course Rangers failed to go on and win that game. So jury is very much out, and games are running out. The league looks like it's out of reach. Europa League tie, of course, are still in it, but they're going to have to improve massively in the final third if they're going to get past Braga at Ibrox, who, for me, we're quite happy to settle for a 1-0 win last night. In the second half, it didn't really pose Rangers any real problems, but at the same time, Rangers going forward just don't offer enough, and they need some of the big players to start stepping up to the plate, but a lot of them look devoid of confidence just now.
Yeah, absolutely, Derek. Listen, part of me thinks that there's been a slight overreaction to this result and this game. I think the reaction has been more to the performance and the team selection as opposed to the actual outcome. I think 1-0 is actually a decent result. Rangers have got a really good chance of going through it. And I said it last night on Twitter, I still believe it. If you'd said to me at the start of the season, Rangers will go into a home second leg against Braga in the quarterfinals of the Europa League for a place in the semis, 1-0 down, you'd have absolutely snapped their hand off for that. That's a really, really good return. The problem, I think, is that the way Rangers are actually playing, it doesn't give you a lot of confidence for that game because there's a sort of lack of spark. There's a lack of vigour about the team at the moment. You don't know kind of where the next goal's coming from, and that's a big problem when you need to go and get 2 to put a team out and not letting any in, which that's a separate issue. Yeah. To me, there's a lot of individual errors, Derek, that are kind of really crippling this Giovanni van Bronckhorst regime. This is a defence that only conceded 13 goals in the league this season. We know that it's much more porous now. But the thing about it is that it just keeps giving away bizarre goals. Now, you look at the goal last night, Leon Balogun has a fresh air swipe, sends the ball directly to Luiz, who dispatches it well, to be fair. It's a great finish. And I don't think Alan McGregor had any chance last night. But it was another one of those mistakes that was entirely preventable. It was an individual error, the kind of thing that managers can do nothing about. And then on top of that, to compound that, there's errors at the other end. Constant errors in terms of pass selection, shaky, sloppy passing, and set pieces, Derek. Unbelievable. I saw stats this morning saying 1 out of 9 of Tavernier's crosses or free kicks actually reached someone, so and was therefore a tangible chance. And I think that was the one that Connor Goldson nodded back for Bassey, which gave him a decent chance. So these are the elements I think that are really undermining the Van Bronckhorst's tenure at the moment, and he needs to find solutions and fast. And Stevie Clifford in his column today, and I tend to agree with him, is saying, when you're under the cosh to find the answer, sometimes you need to think outside the box. But he keeps going back to this same core of players who are kind of not really performing for him. I don't think any of us think Scott Wright's a world beater or Amad Diallo's a world beater. But is there an argument that they could be brought in from the cold and to see if they can offer something different just to try and spark things to life? I always remember a season, I can't remember which of the seasons it was under Walter Smith. It might have been his second season, the second title win on a second spell, when he brought back in DeMarcus Beasley out of nowhere and played him for 7 or 8 games, and he just gave the team a sort of different dimension over that period and really helped turbocharge the title tilt. And you just kind of feel like Rangers are a bit stale and predictable at the moment.
Yeah. Scott Wright is an interesting one. I was thinking of him last night, but then how many chances has he had to make an impression? He was given a fair crack at the whip when Giovanni van Bronckhorst first came in over on that right-hand side, and for me, he just failed to take his opportunity. That aside, we touched on Diallo beforehand. He's obviously not trusted at this moment in time. And then you're thinking to yourself, who else is there? I mean, I've seen some talk about giving Cedric Itten another chance up front, but I'm not too sure if that's the answer either. In terms of the set pieces, it was something that Giovanni van Bronckhorst mentioned in the press conference. The set pieces weren't good enough. Deliveries aren't good enough, and Rangers have no real aerial prowess to challenge balls in the box as well. It's all right. Deliveries are poor, but I know Connor Goldson getting the end of that corner he could have done perhaps better with. But that aside, there's no one else that really is busting a gut to get their head on the ball, and that's a problem. They maybe need to look at a different avenue to get in on goal, perhaps not whipping crosses into the box. So we've seen on Sunday against Celtic was 36 crosses and only 7 found their intended target, which is very, very poor. And again, I think it's a confidence issue as well. You're talking about mistakes in the final third in the defensive areas. I think it's all to do with confidence. If the forward players are doing the business at one end, then it certainly helps the players in defence, where they know that if they hit players up there, they're going to do the business. That's what I was saying about Tavernier. He was involved in a bit of a heated debate with Glenn Kamara at one point, where I think he was just criticising the lack of movement and not getting the team up the pitch. And it's just not working at the moment. I think it's a team that's just perhaps run out of steam a tad. They need a bit of a break, I think, a recharge of the batteries, a refresh. But they're not going to get that in April, the month of all months, a month that could will define Rangers' season at the moment. 2 defeats, of course, the first 2 games. It can be salvaged, there's no doubt about it, but it's going to need a big change, both in the forward areas and at the back as well. But that's why Giovanni van Bronckers earns the big bucks, and not me and you, Jonny. I'm sure he'll be working with Dave Voss and Roy Mackay to try and figure out what's going wrong.
Yeah, well, this is an important point from a friend of the pod, CGM55, who's on most days, often got great points. But I'm going to respectfully disagree on this. Jonny, the reaction is based on the quality of opposition. Braga were not a good side, and they could have beaten us 3 or 4-0. We're not a good side, should I say. So here's the thing, right? I'm looking at the stats in front of me, and I know that stats aren't everything. I didn't feel like Braga could have won that game 3 or 4-0. I really didn't. I thought it was a very close game, a coin flip. Rangers didn't offer an awful lot going forward. To be honest, neither did Braga. Rangers had a couple of chances. Here's the stats. Braga had 47% of possession. Rangers had 53. The expected goals, Braga 0.53. Rangers 0.54. Total shots, 6 for each team. Big chances, 0 for Braga, 1 for Rangers. Big chances missed, 0 and 1. Accurate passes, 81% Braga, 84% Rangers. Corners, 5 for Braga, 6 for Rangers. So, I think that backs up my point. Now, people will turn around and angrily tell me that stats mean nothing, but I respectfully, I disagree. I think that the numbers give you an impression of the game, and when the expected goals are 0.53 against 0.54, what it tells me is it was an extremely poor game where there wasn't many chances made. And Braga's goal came from not a big chance. It wasn't classified as a big chance. You know, it would be interesting to see, and Derek will have it later on, the expected goals from the chance, and the push shot expected goals, etc., etc. Because I don't think you score that shot many times out of 10 when you take it from there, having to curl it round the keeper like that. And that came from a mistake. So, yes, the performance was not full of sweetness and light. You know, it wasn't flashy. It wasn't slick. It wasn't Dortmund. In fact, it wasn't good. You know, I'm not defending the team. It wasn't a good performance. But I don't think there was actually much between these sides. And I think this is a very young Braga team who will not enjoy Ibrox on Thursday. Of next week.
I think the supporters were delighted, I think, to just take some sort of lead over there. They know that they're in for a game on Thursday. They've got recent history of that, of course, a couple of years ago. And with the fans behind them, Ibrox will be rocking, of course. But the only thing that concerns me, as you touched on, Jonny, is the team aren't playing well just now going forward. You don't know where the goals are going to come from. And they're going to need a lot of work on the training ground, and whether they have time to rectify issues in terms of set pieces and how to best utilise either Fashion Sakala or Kima Roof up top remains to be seen. Ryan Kent as well, I thought started brightly, but was almost starved of service over on that left-hand side, especially in the second half. We didn't really see much of him. And Sakala, there's a couple of occasions where he was just out-muscled, bundled to the ground, and you're thinking, if that's Alfredo Morelos, it's a different story. There's no doubt about it. Rangers miss him heavily up top. They really struggle to hold the ball up.
Let's talk about that, Derek, because that was one of the things that we asked Gio to do before the game. I brought it up on Twitter about a week ago that I thought Fashion Sakala was perfect for this game. And the reason I did was because I thought there would be a lot of running in behind. But last night he seemed to try and become Alfredo Morelos. He was trying to do a lot of link-up play, which he's not good at. And Ali McCoist was just tearing his hair out in terms of the co-commentary last night. You're obviously at the game, so you've missed all this. But McCoy said at one point, exasperated, listen, it's one thing having pace, but it's another thing knowing what to do with it. And he didn't mention Fashion Sakala by name, but it was obvious who he was targeting at. Because McCoy's just spent the whole game going, why is he not spinning into space? I mean, this is the out ball. He's much faster than the boy he's up against, who's got a book in early doors.
Yeah.
And it was just a really disappointing performance because it was all there for him to sign himself off as a Rangers player, really, and say, right, I'm here now.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen, did it?
No, I mean, he's like many other players. He started brightly. There's one move where Tavernier takes a throw in and he turns the boy and he pulls away and tries to get a crossover. And then the chance, of course, where he does the hard work. I think Jack plays the ball to him and he creates the angle for the shot, but then we know he's shooting is erratic and he blazes high over the bar, and that was possibly Rangers. Well, it was Rangers' best real opportunity towards goal. But that's what you know what you're getting with Fashion Sakala. He's raw. We've used that word many times this season. You know what you're going to get. You're going to get blistering pace, but as McCoy says, it's already having that. But if you've got no end product, then it's pointless. And Rangers needed more last night up front. That's how we've seen, of course, Kemar Roof coming on midway through the second half, and he's another player that's devoid of confidence. I think he gave away 3 fouls, was caught offside, maybe trying too hard. He's obviously not had many games recently, but Rangers as well, they need more from Kemar Roof as well as Fashion Sakala. But that aside, I mean, I touched on Cedric Itten. I don't think he's the answer. Rangers need these 2 players, in particular with the absence of Alfredo Morelos, to stand up and be counted. And they're not Alfredo Morelos. We've seen that on Sunday with Kemar Roof against Celtic, and we've seen it last night with Fashion Sakala. Just the amount of times that the defenders simply just bowled him over. He was looking for free kicks, but none were coming because he's just simply lightweight. He doesn't have the physicality to roll defenders or ragdoll him, as we've seen Alfredo Morelos do in Europe countless times. So this is what I'm saying about Jonny van Bronckers on the training ground, trying to find different solutions and trying to utilise these players better. But it's all right doing that. The players have to step up and deliver as well.
Yeah, the atmosphere around this game, there's no getting away from it, Derek. People are angry about the performance. Where does this leave Giovanni van Bronckhorst? Because he's under immense pressure now, isn't he, going into this St Mirren game, which, let's be honest, I don't think Celtic are going to drop points against St Johnstone.
St Mirren.
Yeah, I mean, you're going up against St Mirren, and then you've got this game against Braga, which has become just so important. But he's under the cosh right now, isn't he? He's really, really under pressure.
Yeah, as we mentioned, it's a huge month for him, and I think we touched on a show earlier on in the week. He has to win one of the Celtic games coming up as well. You can't lose 4 Celtic games. And it seems harsh because, of course, he's just come in. He's only had one transfer window. He's not been able to bring in his own players. I think everyone's in agreement. There has to be some sort of clear out in the summer. A refresh of the squad. He needs to bring in his own players, and he deserves the summer to try and shape his own team. But at Rangers, you don't get any time, do you? The supporters want success. They demand to win every game. They were expecting to win the game last night. The supporters I was speaking to were very confident that Rangers would go and get a result. But that's 2 defeats now in a row. The performances haven't been good, even at Dens Park, of course, where they sort of got out of jail, but the performance levels were way below what we expect. And I'm struggling to think of perhaps Dortmund and Red Star, the only games that stand out in recent weeks where Rangers have been really good. That aside, especially domestically, you're struggling to think maybe Hearts and Hibs back in February time.
Yeah, but the thing is, you can apply that back to the whole of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, you look last season, especially early doors, there was so many great performances to look back on, and really you came away from with a warm glow if you were of a Rangers mind. But this season, it's been attritional from the get-go, and that was under Gerrard too. And that's the thing that really worries me, is that when you look at the Gerrard era, this season and you compare it to the Van Bronckhorst era this season,
yeah,
there hasn't actually been a huge drop-off or anything like that. But the one thing I think, and this is a major problem for Van Bronckhorst, you don't need to be a tactical guru to look at a Steven Gerrard side and see what he's trying to do. The imprint of Steven Gerrard is all over the side. So at least even when they're playing badly, you look at it and you go, well, I can see what they're doing. You can see what they're doing on the training ground. It's got Michael Beale all over it.
Yeah.
And everyone knows, I don't want to go through it again, but everyone knows how they set up with the 2 number 10s, how they made themselves difficult to penetrate out of possession so that they would encourage teams to funnel down the sides and all that. That was very, very obvious and very, very drilled. The problem is with Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, and I keep seeing over and over again, I see it in the comments today from various people. Sorry if I can't find the comments but offhand, but I've seen quite a few comments about identity. You know, like, people are struggling to see what Van Bronckhorst's philosophy is. I suspect Van Bronckhorst's philosophy is like winning games. He doesn't really care.
Yeah.
He doesn't have an overarching philosophy. He's quite happy to go 3-4-3 or 5-3-2 or 4-3-3, or he's not ideological like Gerrard. So I don't think you're going to get that kind of intense imprint from game to game. I think it'll depend on how the players' form is, who they're playing, how Van Bronckhorst's team will look. And that actually makes it difficult for him to come after Gerrard, because people are like, well, we saw it. We saw it every week. Even when it wasn't good under Gerrard, we knew what he was trying to do. I think that's going to be a real difficult one for Van Bronckhorst to try and get round, because, as I say, I don't think he has that kind of core philosophy where he wants a team to play in a certain way week after week. I think he's a pragmatist. And you ask yourself, well, is that going to work at Rangers? That's the big question, because everyone accepts there's going to be a massive rebuild in the summer, and that rebuild's going to involve a lot of money. So do you want to entrust a manager that you've seen elements that you're not particularly happy with that? Or do you want to make a decisive move and say, no, we've seen enough of Giovanni Van Bronckhorst? I think that would be very early to make a decision like that.
Yeah.
But I'm speaking to Rangers fans, and a lot of them are telling me that they think they're not seeing it with Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. He's getting increasingly criticised for his appearances in front of the media. I've heard a lot of people say that he's quite flat. I mean, I would just say he's measured.
Yeah.
You know, he wants to keep everything on the down low. He wants to keep everything calm. He's one of these typical Dutchmen. He wants to bring it right down. That's the way he is. But a lot of people are saying, well, it's a bit boring, but uninspiring. Steven Gerrard would throw a few grenades in week after week and be spiky and, you know, argue with people and give people the glare and all that. Gio doesn't really do that. And they're wondering if that translates to his performances in the dressing room with the players. I mean, what I would say is he was a captain of Holland that took a team to the World Cup final. You know, you don't get to where he's gotten to in his career as a player if you don't have a bit about him. He was a captain in various clubs, you know, and he was always a leader in the dressing room. He was a leader in the Invincibles dressing room for Arsenal as a younger player. He was a leader on the pitch for Rangers. Maybe he's one of these guys that leads more by example, but I don't think you can judge him based on his the way he handles the media. That's a completely different style and doesn't necessarily translate one to the other. I don't think it might, but it doesn't necessarily. What's your take?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This month is crucial. He needs to give Rangers fans a bit of encouragement and something to look forward to in the summer, because, as you mentioned, the supporters they don't have patience at Rangers. That they want to win every week immediately. And I know that the Gerrard comparison is a fair one. I think it's on the players very much this season, where that they've not reached nowhere near the heights as they did last season, and a few of them have reached the end of the road in terms of their Rangers careers. And there's no doubt about it. Rangers need to bring in fresh faces, but he needs something. He needs a big result this month in the next week or so. Of course, Braga coming up on Thursday. First of all, you need to beat St Mirren. You can't lose in Paisley on Sunday. win that game, if he can progress to the semi-finals of the Europa League, that for me is a monumental achievement, and that for me satisfies me that he can do the job of being Rangers manager. Then there's the 2 Celtic games. The Scottish Cup, as we all know, the record in there has been deplorable recently. The Hampden record is poor as well. But if you can get a result in 1 or 2 of the Celtic games, then I think that will give supporters a bit of encouragement heading into the summer. But yeah, it's certainly too early to call for his head, I think.
Okay, folks, we're going to have to call it a day. We have very much run out of time. So we'll be back tomorrow. Well, actually, we won't be. It's tomorrow, Saturday. We're back on Monday with another briefing. We'll also be around on Sunday after the game, Rangers against St Mirren. So join us then for a chat about what happened in that game. Until next time, thanks.